Hello, my name is Jessica Conway, and I'll be doing my oral presentation on the responsibilities of citizens during the time of a disaster. In order to define exactly what a citizen is responsible for during a disaster, it is critical to define what a disaster is. A disaster is a dangerous event that causes significant human and economic loss and demands a crisis response beyond the scope of any single agency or jurisdiction. Here to the left, you can see a picture of a flood that occurred in West Virginia. A flood is actually the most common disaster worldwide and is extremely devastating, as you can tell by the picture. Obviously, the storm surge and the floods have wiped away this car from its place, and there were severe devastations across the entire state. In contrast, we see a picture here on the right, which is actually myself. I was vacationing in West Virginia, just about an hour north of where this flood took place. So you can see the contrast between the two and how much devastation a flood can really entail. As far as the citizens' responsibility, it is crucial for them to be aware of what disasters can affect them in their area and what disasters are common where you are living. So if you are residing in South Florida, it's important to plan for hurricanes because those are very common in that area. Or if you're living in California, perhaps an earthquake because those are also very prevalent in that area. It's also important for citizens to be aware of what resources are available to them during their times of need in case of a disaster. The citizens are responsible for being informed and prepared for disasters. It is very critical to listen to emergency personnel during the time of disasters for safety information, as well as evacuation orders and information. It's also critical that the citizens take these orders seriously every time that they are given. It is so much better to be safe than sorry, and you don't want to fall into that trap of believing that you could be good just to wait the storm out. So whether the order is to shelter in place or evacuate, it's very important that those are obeyed. It's also important to stay attentive during the time of a disaster, to go ahead and pay attention to all those broadcasting and weather events that are keeping you current and updated, because disasters do change very rapidly. It's also important to get that emergency information from a credible source. It is important to stay on top of that because, like I said, disasters are rapidly changing and that path of impact may alter. It's also important for the citizen to remain self-sufficient, so only call upon those emergency responders when absolutely necessary, because they are critical to that response effort and they need to be available. Probably the most important job for the citizen responsibility is to have a plan and to practice that plan in case of emergency. Citizens need to know where to go to meet in the event of a mandatory evacuation with their families, to know what to do before, during, and after a disaster. And it's also advised to develop a communication plan with each other and the extended family for event of evacuation, to have a place to go, or in the event of a separation so you can get reunited. It's also important in that plan to have a plan to secure your household, to ensure the safety of your structure, family, pets, anything that needs to be taken care of before an evacuation. It's also important for families to hold a stockpile, just in case they are in that house during the time of a disaster, to have an emergency kit prepared, including at least 3 days worth of food and water. Some other suggested contents are going to be things like non-perishable foods, cash, medicine, clothing, blankets, radio with some extra batteries, gasoline. All these things are hard to come by during a disaster. So overall, the citizens are responsible mainly to remain self-sufficient and informed during a disaster.